Chudlachada agus a cuairteoirí is mór an orla mé, fáilte cuairteoid an seonú, chuig oscailt na cearna anad samad náisiúnta in Institute Ordinaire Value Clean. Tá mé harad bei buíocht don rúnaíocht technical sealada as ucht an cinna dhéanamh an cearn seo a racfáil in éireann. Tu go mí go maith an tábhacht atá ag buint leis an cearn seo agus 1,000 kilóí bliana 20 bliain ó síneadh an chunra. Chur an 100,000 a fáilte róile agus tásúla gom go bhuineadh sibh antainmh as an cuairt a dhéanamh sibh seo in éireann agus go tuigh sibh leis a rís. Distinguished guests and esteemed colleagues, it's indeed an honour to see you all here today in Dublin at the opening of the workshop for the NDCs in this, the most important year, the 20th year of the signing of the treaty. I wish you came in a fáilte, 100,000 welcomes, and we'll get the process underway right now. First and foremost, a few items in relation to housekeeping. So I would remind you that it's important that we wear our badges at all times, because this is an active building where there are people working on different floors. One important thing is the evacuation procedure in the unlikely event we having to vacate the building. We will go back out the entrance that you came in, and we will assemble around at the green post box that's on the right hand side as you go outside. And we remain there until we've been instructed to return. Of course, the usual thing, put your phones on silent. The 5th floor is out of bounds for everybody. And other household items in relation to the buses this evening for the reception, the afternoon session, how that will roll out, and other working arrangements that we have to cope with, we will do on a day-to-day basis. So it gives me great pleasure to call on the Director of the IDC, Mr. Randy Bell, to open the proceedings.
So, if you've had a look at the agenda, you'll notice that I have several opportunities to be up here on the podium today. Right now, I'm simply going to welcome you and declare that this meeting has started. I would like to thank, in particular, Tom for all of his work in planning this meeting. I would like to thank the Dublin Institute of Advanced Studies for hosting us, and I'd like to thank the government of Ireland for agreeing to support and host this meeting through the Institute of Advanced Studies. I'd also like to thank all of you for participating, coming here. I think this is a lovely venue and lovely weather. I admit I brought my umbrella and raincoat, and I've been pleasantly surprised, and hopefully this will hold through the week, and we'll have lovely shiny weather for us to have our deliberations. This is an important meeting. I have much more to say on that in a few moments. At this point, I would like to turn over to the Director of the Institute here to give you his welcome. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much. My name is Vincent Correa. I'm the Chairman of the Council here at the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies. My eyesight is failing on a daily basis, so firstly, we're delighted in Dias to host the National Data Centre Workshop organised by the Provisional Technical Secretariat of the Preparatory Commission for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organisation, CTBTO. You all know that very well, but I thought I would just say it anyway. In cooperation with the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies and the Government of Ireland. We welcome all our visitors here, especially if it's your first time in Ireland, and our earnest wish that you have a very successful, informative and enjoyable workshop here in Dias. The weather and climate change we can do very little about, although we work on some aspects of that here in Dias, but for now we will enjoy the fact that it's not raining. And if you were here on Saturday, your umbrella, your Wellingtons maybe might be more appropriate, but we've changed it in time for this distinguished workshop. I should say that Dias celebrated its 75th year last year. And Dias has a very proud history. that over those 75 years. It was set up obviously in 1940, at a time in Ireland when research was not very much to the fore. Indeed, it wasn't very much to the fore anywhere in the world at that point in time, to a great extent pre the aftermath of the Second World War. But the Irish government made a very strategic decision to set up the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies and to highlight to the world that Ireland was interested in research. And it did that through at that stage Taoiseach de Valera, our Prime Minister de Valera at that time, who later became President of Ireland. And the idea was that Ireland would engage in research of a fundamental nature with an international impact. And I think the objectives that were set out in the legislation was to conduct fundamental research at the highest level, to train scholars in basic research, and doing so we would engage with researchers from all over the world. So it is very appropriate that today we have representatives from many different countries across the globe engaged in research that leads and has had a significant impact and will continue to have an impact in the ensuing years. And that international stage was very important for Ireland all down through those years, and DIAS was at the forefront of that. There have been many significant firsts out of DIAS, but that may be for a different time. But primarily, the Founding Fathers saw a role for Ireland and DIAS in the world stage. And therefore, the promotion of the idea of nuclear non-proliferation has a long and impressive history in Ireland. And this reputation is held in high regard internationally. Mr. Frank Aitken, the then Minister for External Affairs representing Ireland, was the first to promote a resolution on nuclear arms limitation at an address to the UN General Assembly in New York in October 1958. And we in Ireland and DIAS are obviously very aware of the significance of this year in the CTBTO calendar, being the 20th anniversary of the first signing of the treaty in 1996. The challenge facing all of us to encourage those states that have not yet signed or ratified the treaty to do so and welcome them into the CTBTO family, thereby making the world safe from nuclear exposures. So how did DIAS come to be part of this activity? Well, it was really the wealth and the knowledge and expertise gained during our time in seismic monitoring and the current geophysical staffing within DIAS that makes this school the most appropriate location for the National Data Centre, CTBTO in Ireland. The section operates the Irish National Seismic Network, INSN, currently recording data at 6 permanent real-time seismic stations throughout Ireland, and exchanging data in real time with national and European agencies and international agencies across the globe. So the School of Cosmic Physics, which is one of the constituent schools of the Institute here, was appointed by the Minister in March 2010 as the NDC. And DIAS staff, since that time, have wholeheartedly participated in many aspects of the CTBTO development. I'll just give some of those, the most notable being the on-site inspector training program, the international field exercise in Jordan in 2014, and as a frequent contributor to the Science and Technology Conference meetings, participation in academic forum and capacity development issues, and the regular participation at the Technical Working Group meetings in Vienna, Group B meetings in Vienna. And so the role that the inter-NDC communication plays in the cross-fertilisation of scientific ideas and cooperation cannot be underestimated. Already our NDC has been involved in working with our colleagues in the UK NDC, Israel NDC, and the Netherlands NDC. And this sharing of intellectual scientific resources, training and information can only augur well for the future, development and strengthening of inter-NDC scientific research, and which I see from your programme is an important part of the current workshop deliberations. So we're very happy to host this very, very important workshop. It's very appropriate that it should be here in DIAS. But I would also like to thank Tom Blake and his team for everything that has gone on here, and we would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for Tom and his team, both in his leadership around the NDC itself, but also in all the other activity, the seismology and activity that he and his team are engaged with through the School of Cosmic Physics. And we're delighted that Tom, you have done all that, and on behalf of the Grateful Institute, I'd just like to thank Tom and his team for bringing us all here together today. I really do hope that you will enjoy your time here. Ireland is at an important juncture. You come to us at a time when we have a new government, just about. It come last week, we wouldn't have had. So we had 70 days of deliberation as the formation of a new government. And we certainly, as citizens, we certainly hope that those deliberations will lead to a stable and progressive government. Of course, as we're all interested in the Minister of Education, as the Minister funds our activities here, and we have Richard Bruton has become the Minister for Education, and he was previously in the Department of Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation. So maybe we still have to fight that fight for basic research. Basic research in Ireland has, over the years, its role has become somewhat diminished as scarce resources have been put into more strategically applied areas. But the role of basic research is hugely important, something that DIAS here will continue to fight for, and I think is evident. Because we wouldn't have the ability to have NDCs if it hadn't been for basic research and all that sort of side of things in seismology. So the important downstream benefits of basic research continue on a daily basis. But that will be my speech to the Minister for Education over the coming days and weeks. But for the moment, enjoy your time with us. I wish you very much a success with your workshop here and the important work that you're going to do. Enjoy Dublin, enjoy DIAS, and thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Vincent. I would just say that, of course, thank you indeed for the lovely comments you paid, but behind this facade there is a very, very well-oiled DIAS machine that comprises Claire and all the colleagues, Eileen and Colin, Philippe, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. Of course, Grace, the most important person with finances. So it isn't only just a single effort, but thank you very much, and I accept your compliments on their behalf. I'd like now to introduce Ms. Rosie Keane, the Deputy Director for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation from the Department of Foreign Affairs, to address it.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning, everyone. Council Chair, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to join you here today for the opening of this important and historic workshop. I'm here representing the Government of Ireland in my capacity as the Deputy Director of Disarmament in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Our Director, Helena Nolan, regrets she's unable to join you today. She's currently representing Ireland at the open-ended working group on taking forward multilateral nuclear discussions in Geneva, so she sends her regrets. Firstly, I'd like to thank the CTBTO, Provisional Technical Secretariat, and the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies for inviting me to speak today. The Government of Ireland is very pleased to join you in hosting this event and to demonstrate our continued support for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and for the CTBTO. I hope you'll find this week's discussions useful and that you will enjoy your visit to Ireland. Since its inception, Ireland has been a strong and consistent supporter of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. I'm going to use CTBTO for short. We see it as an essential element in the global nuclear non-proliferation regime built around the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. By prohibiting all nuclear weapons test explosions and all other nuclear explosions, the treaty will impede the development and qualitative improvement of nuclear weapons. It is therefore essential that we achieve an end to nuclear testing. This will be an important step along the road to a world without nuclear weapons. From our earliest days at the UN, Ireland has been passionately committed to disarmament and non-proliferation. As the first state to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1968, we have a deep and abiding commitment to the full implementation of the treaty. The so-called Irish resolutions in the UN General Assembly paved the way for the NPT, which of course would not have been achieved without the personal conviction and diplomatic skill of our then Minister, Mr. Frank Aiken. Our commitment to nuclear disarmament was underlined in June 2008 when Ireland jointly established a new agenda coalition. Ireland, with our partners Egypt, Brazil, Mexico, New Zealand and South Africa, are pleased to introduce fresh thinking and drive into this multilateral disarmament discussion. Together, we will continue to build upon this momentum in order to reinforce our message across the different multilateral fora in which we operate. Ireland continues to pledge its unwavering support for the full implementation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. At the UN General Assembly last year, the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, Mr. Charles Flanagan, while affirming Ireland's abiding commitment to the full implementation of the NPT, called on all states to redouble our efforts to ensure not just that others refrain from developing nuclear weapons, but that such weapons are never used again under any circumstances, and that a process is started now to put all nuclear weapons beyond use for good. Ireland commends the significant progress which has been made on nuclear non-proliferation. We warmly welcome the agreement known as the Comprehensive Joint Plan of Action on Iran's nuclear program in 2015, and we look forward to its full implementation. We firmly believe that this represents a significant achievement for the non-proliferation pillar of the NPT. However, despite significant achievements in relation to non-proliferation, progress has unfortunately been much slower on nuclear disarmament, and the outcome of last year's NPT review conference was deeply disappointing. Today, there are at least 17,000 nuclear weapons posing a threat to our very survival. We can't accept this status quo. Ireland wants real momentum injected into the nuclear disarmament pillar of the NPT. To quote the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, there are no right hands for the wrong weapons. Nevertheless, it is heartening to see so many new NPT state parties united in agreeing to a humanitarian pledge for the prohibition and elimination of nuclear weapons at the NPT review conference. Our understanding of the catastrophic humanitarian impact associated with any use of nuclear weapons has developed considerably in recent years, and in this regard I would like to pay tribute to Mexico, Norway and Austria for the conferences that they have hosted, which have shone a spotlight on the humanitarian impacts of nuclear detonation. Ireland also values the role played by civil society in helping to broaden and deepen our understanding, and in particular we would like to recognise the invaluable work carried out by the International Committee of the Red Cross. As I mentioned earlier, the director of my unit is currently at the open-ended working group on taking forward multilateral nuclear disarmament negotiations in Geneva. The working group meets under the auspices of the UN with a strong mandate from a UN resolution which attracted the support of over 138 countries, including Ireland. The cross-regional support which this resolution achieved demonstrates clearly the ambition of the vast majority of UN members who wish to work towards a general agreement on our shared goal of nuclear disarmament. The working group is an inclusive process open to participation by all states. Ireland welcomes the contribution of a range of viewpoints in a genuine and frank debate. The working group also benefits from the active involvement of civil society and academia who bring fresh thinking and expertise to the discussion. Ireland consistently supports broad inclusive participation in these discussions, and in this regard we've consistently highlighted the vital role that women must play in disarmament negotiations. Ireland will continue to play its part in this important working group, and we are confident that the recommendations agreed there will support global efforts towards multilateral nuclear disarmament. Ladies and gentlemen, as we mark the 20th anniversary of the signing of the CTBT, we should recognise the benefits which have been garnered from the treaty's adoption, and in particular the contribution made by the CTBTO Provisional Technical Secretariat. The ongoing development of the CTBTO International Monitoring System, or IMS for short, is of vital importance to the global efforts to work towards a world without nuclear weapons. The system has been described as one of the most ambitious projects ever to monitor the Earth. The science you are doing on the ground plays a major role in supporting international efforts towards a world free of nuclear weapons. The IMS will also bring wider civilian benefits in being able to detect seismic or tsunami activity, as was demonstrated in 2011 with the tragedies in Japan. In this way, this important disarmament and non-proliferation initiative delivers wider benefits for the global population. Ireland believes that there is a clear intersection between disarmament and development. We are proud to have co-facilitated the final negotiations of the Sustainable Development Goals, the implementation of which is critical for the future of our planet and our people. The Sustainable Development Goals are a tangible manifestation of the capacity of the UN to deliver positive outcomes in very challenging circumstances. In this context, we must recall that the potential of nuclear detonation, on purpose or by accident, can only add to the threat to human security and the safety of the planet. If we want the best future for our people, we must work constructively together to secure the peace, safety and security of our world. The best way to do this is to fulfill our joint obligations and start implementing the NPT as originally intended. The Sustainable Development Goals negotiation process has underscored the very positive role that civil society groups and people around the world can play. Ireland would like to see that positivity, inclusivity and urgency in the nuclear disarmament debate. We hope that in the upcoming review cycle, NPT state parties will draw inspiration from the Sustainable Development Goals process and from the negotiations which forged the historic climate agreement in Paris. We must recall, though, that these agreements exist under the shadow of a potential nuclear detonation, which puts all our most important goals at risk. Ireland calls on all parties to look beyond narrow interests and doctrines and to prioritise instead the advancement of human development internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, it's heartening looking around this room to see participants from so many states who have ratified or signed the treaty, which is such an essential component of the nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament regime. And we welcome the commitment by other states to adhere to the principles of the CTBTO. While this level of universalisation and adherence represents a strong international norm against nuclear weapons testing, we cannot afford to wait any longer for its entry into force. The provocative nuclear test explosion carried out by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and Japan, in January, further underlined the urgency of the CTBTO. The data generated by the IMS network of seismic stations provided vital information to states, both in the region and globally. And an analysis of the data carried out by the CTBTO empowered the international community to introduce new restrictive measures in response to this provocation, including the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 2270. Ireland is greatly concerned by the ongoing developments in the North Korean weapons programme. The test carried out in January is a real threat to the peace and security in the Korean Peninsula and indeed the entire Northeast Asian region. Furthermore, the test was a flagrant violation of North Korea's international obligations not to produce or test nuclear weapons. These provocations draw into sharp focus the need for engagement on nuclear disarmament by all stakeholders. Ireland calls on North Korean authorities to cease all nuclear testing and to re-engage with the six-party talks on the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula immediately and without preconditions. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I would like to speak briefly about an aspect of Ireland's rich scientific heritage that has helped shape the modern world, and indeed is the very reason why we're all here today. I'm sure most of you will be aware of Ireland's connection to modern seismology. Dubliner Robert Mallet is recognised as the father of seismology, and indeed it is he who coined this term. His work, supplemented by countless others, has brought us to a point today where seismic events on the other side of the planet, both natural and man-made, can be detected and measured, and the data generated and analysed to an extraordinary degree. I know you are all working to further develop this important area of science, and through your research, our understanding of our world has been greatly deepened. I hope this week you'll have fruitful exchanges, share your experiences and knowledge, and perhaps even find opportunities for future engagement. Finally, I would like to conclude by thanking you all for your work and for the invaluable contributions that you've made. I want to wish you every success going forward and that you enjoy your experience here in Dublin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosie, for that. And now, Randy, you.
Get to address you again. So when preparing for a meeting like this, I obviously naturally looked back at past NDC workshops to see what had been said previously. I looked at what Tibor Toth, our previous executive secretary, had said when he spoke in front of the NDC Evaluation Forum, as it was called at the time. I also looked at what Lassina Zerbo, my immediate predecessor and now executive secretary, said when he last addressed this body. They, as I, will reiterate the purpose of this meeting. This is a forum for experts from the NDCs to share their experience in fulfilling their verification responsibilities. I'm going to come back to that, verification responsibilities of the NDCs. It's an opportunity for you to provide feedback to the PTS on all aspects of data, processing, products, services, and support. And it facilitates the conduct of the NDC preparedness exercises, which are a recognized component of the developing the experience and the common understanding of those verification responsibilities I mentioned earlier. However, my predecessors also discussed the political backdrop of the treaty. This is sometimes difficult to measure, but like most of you, I'm a technical person, and I seek some tangible means to measure, to make this sort of measure. You'll have to excuse my analogy, but I can't resist the using a metaphor based upon the early figures here at the Dublin Institute of Advanced Studies. It doesn't sit well with me that the CTBT is a half-living cat. As you know, Schrödinger spent a significant portion of his career here. When looked at from one vantage point, the CTBT has become nearly universal. Its verification regime is effective. But when viewed from a different system of measures, it's not real, it's not legal, perhaps not even relevant. So how do we measure our progress towards completeness, towards becoming a living entity? If we look at percentage of completeness of several metrics, you might think we're nearly there. I recall that we often say that there's 183 states that have signed the treaty. Well, what fraction is that? There are if you look at other treaties and other international organizations, there's between 192 and 197 entities that might be eligible to sign international agreements at a treaty level. So 183, that's about 92-95% complete. If you look at how many have ratified the CTBT, 164, that's, again, 83 to 85% complete. If we look at just the Annex II states, those necessary for the treaty to enter into force, there's 44 in Annex II, 41 have signed, that's 93%. 36 have ratified, that's 81%. Again, measurements are looking consistent. Now let's look at the stations and facilities of the International Monitoring System. We all know 337 facilities are designated in the treaty. 301 are built. That's about 90%, actually 89 point something. 282 were certified. So that's 83%. All these numbers are looking consistent. 90-ish% of the countries have signed. 93% of the Annex II have signed. 90% of the stations are built, or 80% ratified or station certified. So it would seem that our cat is 90% alive, or is 90% living. But what about progressive commissioning? The process we embarked upon at the outset of the 20 years ago to methodically approach entry into force is a regular topic of this workshop. I don't know what to say. Are we at phase 5B or have we completed phase 5A? I'll say we're at 5.5 out of 7. 5.5 out of 7 translates to about 76%. This is not, but none of these are linear measures. If I go back and say phase 1 took 5 months to complete. Phase 2 of the Progressive Commissioning Plan took another 3 months to complete. Phase 3, 14. Phase 4, 30 months. Phase 5A has taken 168 months. This is not a linear scale. We all know there's various wise sayings, such as the first 80% of work takes 20% of the effort, or the low-hanging fruit is picked first. We've picked the easy fruit. We're now working on the hard fruit. The harder stations, the harder member states, the harder issues for progressive commissioning. I don't need to tell you that the end is far away. Progress, when it comes, may be swift. Sort of like tectonic stress that builds up over time, over 20 years, and then may be released suddenly. Hopefully not catastrophically. For now, we seem to be left with a treaty, or a CAT, that is both alive and not. It's alive in that the monitoring regime essentially serves its monitoring purpose, and many other useful, agreed upon roles of civil good. But it's not alive in that it doesn't have legal status. It doesn't perform its ultimate role, forever banning and deterring nuclear tests. There are some who speculate this indeterminate quantum situation is preferred by some. Others argue this is an unstable state that must eventually degenerate. I feel these are not questions of physics and technology, but politics and diplomacy. I feel that our role, that is the IDC and the NDCs, is to make ourselves as ready as possible, recognizing that demonstrating our readiness is one criteria for influencing the effort to get the CTBTO into force. So how can we make ourselves as ready as possible? First, let me ask you a few questions. Were we on alert the morning of January 6th? No. Was the world anticipating a test on the morning of January 6th? No. Were we caught unprepared? No. There's been a great deal of speculation that there might have been a fifth test last week or maybe even this week, just prior to or during the 7th North Korean Workers' Party Congress. Are we on alert for this? No. At this stage in the development of the verification regime, the system is mature and stable. Even with 80% of the stations, it works to continuously observe, record, report events around the globe, and provide you, the NDCs, the raw and processed data you need to fulfill your roles. So what more needs to be done? What more needs to be done in our scope? Yes, the system could be more reliable, more efficient, more trustworthy. So the topic of authentication, I'm sure, will come up. It needs to continue to be credible. Methods must remain current with scientific best practices. It needs, or we need, to provide support to the NDCs so you can better fulfill your roles. So, to repeat, were we on alert? No. Were we caught off guard? No. Does the world need to anticipate a test? No. We each have to move forward. Will we work together? Yes. We each have specific roles, mutually supporting roles. Let me have another brief aside. Again, preparing for this meeting, I always have a tendency to go back to source documents to understand, exactly what the original documents say about what our objectives or roles are. So I went back to the treaty and the protocol and looked for NDCs in the treaty and in the protocol. I can see Hans is laughing a little bit. And although the IDC is well specified in the treaty, NDCs only appear in the treaty and the protocol 4 times. The word NDCs, National Data Centers. Once is in the treaty itself, and that only relates to the fact that the PTS shall fund a communications infrastructure that, among other things, provides data to the NDCs. It doesn't mention roles at all. It's mentioned twice in the protocol, but only to acknowledge that data from primary and auxiliary seismic stations shall flow continuously to the IDC, either directly or through national data centers. I find this interesting. It doesn't mention that data from infrasound stations or radionuclide stations might also flow through national data centers. And NDCs are mentioned one final time as a direction to the IDC, an obligation on the IDC to provide you support in developing your capabilities to receive, process, and analyze data. There's actually nothing in the treaty or the protocol about the role of the NDCs. But there's a lot in the treaty and the protocol about the role of national authorities. And there's been a lot over 20 years, over 46 meetings of Working Group B, soon to be 47 meetings of Working Group B, about the roles of NDCs in supporting national authorities. Returning to what we can do. We, that is the IDC and the NDCs jointly, can ensure that we are doing our job well, and that we are recognized and are relied upon, that we're trusted to perform this role whenever needed. Trusted by the member states, trusted by our national authorities, but also trusted by the public who support and are influence national authorities, member states, the world. We also have to recognize that when something like January 6th occurs, national leadership and nations as a whole are looking for rapid, authoritative understanding of what is going on. The PTS was queried by a few well-informed media for our input. We were naturally constrained by our role under the treaty. We informed media that we had detected signals and were passing that data and products on to member states and would report to member states. We appreciate that we are operating in an evolving world. Our simple statements to the media were probably not well received by the media, so the media quickly asked for input from academics and others. We live in a world where the public, and thus public leaders, will be informed by public analysis, often faster than official IDC or NDC reports. We need to learn how to interact with public analysis in a way that's consistent with the treaty. We've undertaken steps in this direction already by engaging with public media, public analysis sources to ensure that they at least understand what we do, how we do it, and the role that the international verification regime plays in making public decisions. I have a question. How many NDCs were contacted by local or international media? Were many of you contacted? Were many of you, were you the authoritative source, either directly or through your national authorities, to provide your nations, your public, with authoritative, credible, trustworthy insights into what was going on? I guess the point here is that in order to become a living cat, a living treaty, something that's not indeterminately in a state of non-existence or full existence, this in-between Schrödinger state, we collectively need to be recognized as the authority in what we do. We need to be responsive to our national authorities, and we need to enable national authorities to be responsive to the public so that they recognize there is a regime that is effective, that's credible, that's trustworthy, that's in place and exists and is alive, doing the role that the media questioned after January 6th and prior events. If we continue to build on our effectiveness, demonstrate our capability, and are recognized both within official member state channels and through public that we are credible, reliable, effective, then we won't be a dead cat anymore. We will have done our part to bring this treaty to fulfillment. So, this week, I charge you, I ask you, to work towards that ultimate effectiveness, to collaborate amongst yourselves, to share experiences on how we can be effective in performing our respective roles, to inform us what we can do better. And with respect to the NPEs, the NDC preparedness exercises, there are roles within the treaty that are yours uniquely. Determining whether an event is a violation of a treaty is your role. We can support you as best we can, but we cannot tell you what a violation of the treaty is. Only you can determine that. Only you, supporting your national authorities, can determine that. The NPE, the NDC preparedness exercise, is one of the tools you have to communicate with yourselves to mature that aspect of the verification regime. With that, I again welcome you here. I reiterate the welcomes of the others who have stood at this podium, and I look forward to an effective week bringing this treaty closer to force. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next thing we have on the schedule is the group photograph, but before we go and do that, we're fairly tightly packed, as you can see, so if we might make our way downstairs to the front steps and meet and assemble there, and then we'll have a coffee break after that. But you can leave all your material here, it's fine, but you can start making your way downstairs. Thank you very much, yeah.